Hey there, it's Michelle. And if you have a Facebook group, you might be thinking, okay, great. I've created this community. I got posts in there, but how do I monetize it? Well, we've got you covered today because joining me is Michelle Vroom. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. The Michelles
I
are.
know. We are going to dominate today, the Michelle 2.0. Wait. Okay, so can you share with everyone like who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your journey?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a business coach who helps other women create groups that bring them consistent clients and put them in control of making money in their business. I fully believe that every single woman should feel in control of getting clients anytime she wants. And I think a community really sets you up to be able to do that. It's why I'm so passionate about it. I started my business 6 years ago. I started when my oldest son, I have three boys. When my oldest son was 6 months old, because I thought, new baby, new business, why not? Truthfully, his birth just gave me the opportunity I had always wanted to start my business. I always wanted to do it, but felt like it was something that I wouldn't be able to do until, the kids were out of the house and I was like in my 50s and I had all these ideas, right? And thank goodness I didn't listen to that. So as soon as he was born, it was like I knew I wanted obviously to have more freedom and flexibility, but really still have a career. And that was important to me. And so 2 months after maternity leave, like I came back from maternity leave actually for I think it was literally only a month or two, went back to my corporate job and then left and started my own thing. And it was a huge leap of faith because at the time I was the breadwinner. I had a nice, cushy corporate job. Nothing was wrong, nothing was bad, lots of flexibility, but it just wasn't what I wanted for my future. And so I had to make that decision that we all make, which is, am I willing to kind of forego this dream and just, look back and wonder what if, or am I willing to go for it, even though it's scary? And so obviously, ultimately, I went for it. And here I am.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And you know what? You are so on point with that because I know for me, I'm much older than you. And back in the day,
Don't look at PS.
oh, well, thank you.
Not
Back
even
in the day, it was like the whole like an entrepreneur thing was like literally opening up a brick and mortar shop, right? And then to have a job with flexibility, it was like pharmaceutical rep, teacher,
right.
they're right
Yep.
to have you that schedule. And there really wasn't this. So it was either stay at home, right? Or have this kind of other job. And I remember like as the type of person that I am is like, I felt like I had to contribute. I wanted to be that role model. I did, I still wanted to, there's nothing wrong with being an at-home mom at all, right? However, it was like, I still wanted to contribute. And so this is like, it gives you really the best of all your worlds.
It really does. You wanted to be the provider. And that is a word that I am like leaning into even more. Like I was on a team retreat a couple of months ago where I outlined my $1 million vision for my company. And it is literally helping women step into the role of provider in business and in life. And there are women who want to do that and they want to do it on their own terms. That's why we're seeing so many women, enter the workplace. I mean, especially in the last 2 years. But when I say enter the workplace, enter the entrepreneurial workplace, right? Leaving behind kind of the old way of doing things, which I think is really exciting. There's opportunity everywhere you look, in the online world. And 6 years ago, I don't think it was that way. Like, I have seen a huge shift even in just 6 years.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So it's like you know how they say everybody's here for a reason. So like I am so glad that you are a part of this world and are helping people do this because and making awareness to it because and now there is more awareness to it, but I think still it's a little like it's like that risk or what. But I think it's not easier than it is. It kind of is. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to just wanting to do it. I think it just seems like a huge risk because I think a lot of people have in their mind, well, what will I bring home? But this is why we're having this conversation today, because a lot of people who do stay home and work from home, like you're by yourself. But when you're part of a community, like how cool is that? Now you're creating with people that you want and you're doing things that you love. So you are having all that together. This is so good. So when we're talking about creating this community, I know even I've fallen into this trap where when you have a Facebook group and it's like, okay, well, how much time do I have to put into this? Like, how do I come up with all this new content? Can you kind of address like if somebody doesn't have a group or maybe their group right now is just kind of like stagnant? what do you suggest on that to kind of like get the community at least going, and how much time will that take for
Yeah.
your
So, right. So number one, you don't need this elaborate content plan. Like you really don't. People say that they think they do, but I think it's just fear talking. It's like, I'm hosting a party. What will we do during the party?
right?
Like, what if the party
Mhm.
sucks, right? And so,
That's a good way.
what I would encourage those of you who either have a stagnant group or are starting a group from scratch or have a group that's maybe only like 100, 200, whatever. I actually just talked about this literally before coming on here in my group. You have been given a gift. You have an opportunity in that phase of your group growth to build relationships that are way more personalized. Like it becomes harder to do that as your group grows. And so
Mhm.
it's not about how much content can I create and how much can I, throw at my people. It's, am I willing to listen more than I talk? And I understand that that can feel confusing because it's like, well, nobody's talking, right? And that's normal in and of itself. But how can you encourage people to talk? Like it doesn't just have to be churning out content. It can be you sending welcome messages, inviting people to, learn more, or asking them like, hey, what are you struggling with? How can I support you? How can I create something that is, tangible and like aligns with where you're at right now? So I think when you're in the beginning stages of growth and your group is smaller, you have more of an opportunity to do that. Like it's more feasible to do that, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I hope that that shifts some perspective around like, oh my gosh, what do I do with my group? Like I don't have all this content. I created stuff as I saw a need, right? Like I listened, like people came in, they answered my membership questions. They told me why they joined the group. You told me what they were looking to learn more about because I'd send them a welcome message. Hey, what's your number one challenge? What are you looking to learn more about? And I started noticing patterns. And then I created content based on those patterns versus trying to create all this stuff without really listening to my audience or figuring out what they wanted to hear. So I think
Mhm.
that's the first piece of that. In terms of time, this is an interesting question because there's no like set, time that you should be spending, right? I can tell you that when my group was in the early stages of growth, I devoted about, I would say anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes a day on two things. Number one, showing up in other communities and other groups and building connections and building relationships and serving, and then inviting them to join my group. Okay. I would spend maybe 30 to 60 minutes a day doing that. I set a timer. And then the other part of the day, the other 30 to 60 minutes, probably more like 30 minutes, right, was literally just me showing up in my group and like sending welcome messages, checking in on members. A lot of people don't even do that. It's like your members join and you think that's the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your journey, right? How many of you have groups, doesn't matter how many are in your group, where people have joined, but like other than welcoming them, you literally have not talked to them at all, right, since then. And so those are the two activities that I spent the bulk of my time on. And I'm giving you like estimated times that I chose to
Mhm.
spend. So that's more of like a tactical answer, Michelle, to your question, but I want to
Mhm.
also answer it from sort of a mindset perspective here, because I think what we're really saying when we say how much time is it's the fear talking. It's the, I don't want to spend time on something that I don't fully believe is going to get me what I want. And
Mhm.
so for those of you who are feeling that way, I would challenge you, what are you spending time on right now when it comes to bringing in clients? And is that time giving you the result that you desire? Because I'm
Mhm.
willing to bet that you're probably already spending a lot of time, more than maybe you want to, on things that aren't generating a result. The other question I'm going to ask you and pose to you is, if you knew that you would get consistent clients from your group, right? Would you be willing to spend whatever time was needed?
Mhm.
I have to
Mhm.
say that if we knew, right, like if I do X, Y, and Z, I know that this is going to deliver a result. We'd have no problem doing X, Y, and Z. We probably wouldn't even be asking how long does it take. So I
Exactly.
want to answer the question, but then also answer what I think is behind the question.
Right. Right. Okay, I had so many things that came up from
I'll
that.
stop there.
I was like, oh my gosh. Well, yeah, because it's like my own like reasons or excuses that coming up, or things that I've heard, right? So
You hear
I
time
what
all the time, by the way. That is definitely the number one thing that I hear probably from
yes.
people why they're on the fence. I just asked yesterday in my Facebook group, why are you on the fence about starting a group? Let me coach you through it. Time
Hmm.
was definitely a big factor. It was also, what if I get the wrong people in, or what if people don't engage? Like there was definitely And again, I want to go back to like, who holds the power here? Take back
Mhm.
your control. As women in business, we are so good at giving away our control. We give away our control to the algorithm. We give away our control to engagement. Like, who cares if the algorithm doesn't show your post? How can you make sure people see it? Right? How can you give people a compelling reason to join your group? Who's in charge of
Mhm.
that? You are.
Mhm.
And we're not taking responsibility and we're giving away control and then wondering why we're not getting the results that we want. So
I
a little
love
tough
that.
love, but I had to say it.
No, you're absolutely right. And even in the conversations and what you were saying, when you were talking about the mindset, the other thing too is I find that, and I talk about this all the time. I've heard this when I first got in, where people come at you with commission breath. So I think what happens is when you're
I've never
right,
heard that phrase
you
before, but I
haven't,
absolutely love it. Yeah,
and you
you're
know exactly what I'm talking
I know
about when I
exactly what you're saying, which is why
exactly.
it's the perfect phrase.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. So what happens is a lot of times when you're in the community, the way I like to think about it, and what with what you just said, is that a lot of times when you're commenting or you're communicating with somebody in the group, you're coming at it with that commission breath, right? Because you're looking like, okay, I'm ready to make money. I'm ready. How am I going to make money from you? And you look at everybody as dollar signs rather than, okay, why did I create this community? And it's all about serving. And then I'm assuming with all these other strategies, then the money comes, right? So the mindset of if I serve, the money will follow, I think
Yes,
that also has a lot to do with it.
the money is the lagging indicator of what action steps you took and where your head was at the time,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So if you are coming at them with commission breath, can I use that in a trivia to challenge?
Totally,
Like, that's
totally.
be if I'm coming at them with commission breath, then you can believe that my own mindset is probably like, I need money now. I need clients now. There's not enough. I got to capitalize on this while it's hot. Right. And then you're coming at them with commission breath. Those are the actions you're taking. Well, the result, AKA the revenue or lack of revenue, is going to be the lagging indicator, the effect, not the cause of the things that you were doing leading up until that point.
Hmm. Hmm. I love it. Okay. So I just have one other question when it comes to content. So I see this a lot of time, and this is something that I personally am like, when you're looking at like, okay, I'm going to do something on social, right? Like that's totally free. No one's in my group. Then I look to see like, oh, I need to have special content in the group, right? Why would they come in here? And then I'm like, but it can't be this type of content in the program that I sell. Is that normal thinking, or should I be not thinking that way? Or
So this is what I teach my clients, and I'm going to break it down into 3 steps and then a strategy that you can use that's going to serve you well across all of this. So there are 3 steps to creating a group that converts. Okay, I call it the GPS method.
okay.
Vroom GPS, it works. Grow. You've got to grow your group with the right people. Okay,
Hmm.
a lot of people chasing numbers. They think that numbers are what matters. They don't. My group,
Hmm.
just full transparency, I've had my group for 4 years. We have I think we're about like we just hit 7,000 members today, possibly. I haven't even checked. I just know that Facebook updated the little like total. Um, that might sound like a lot, but over 4 years, it's actually not that much. It's actually
Hmm.
slower growth compared to other groups, but I'll be willing to bet, and I will hold firm to this and probably would bet that we convert at a higher rate because we are intentional about our growth, about
Hmm.
making sure that the right people get in there. And that starts with talking about what's happening inside of the group versus the group itself. Like you see these follow trains where people are like, follow my group and you can promote yourself. Well, you're just going to get a bunch of people in there who just want to promote and then they're going to leave and there's no conversation. It's just them talking into the group, right? And so you
Hmm.
have to look at, how am I positioning my group, and am I positioning my group for growth with the right people? Okay. Now, some
Hmm.
people won't be ready to buy when they come into your group, but with some nurturing and relationship building, they will. Some people will be, right? But you need to speak to what's happening inside of the group versus, oh, I have a free group. Nobody cares. Okay. So that's the
Hmm.
first piece of this. The second piece is pre-selling, is creating demand for your offer before you even book a sales call. So positioning yourself as an expert, get like building that relationship so that people see you as the solution to their problem, right? And
Hmm.
even educating them on what the actual problem is. Because a lot of people come in and they think the problem's one thing, but then shifting their thought process around what the problem actually is can be very powerful. That's the P.
Hmm.
The third part of this is the S, which is sell, right? You do need to sell in
Hmm.
your I go into a lot of groups and I see people not even talking about the fact that they have an offer or that they're in business at all, and they wonder why they're not selling. If you've done the P, meaning the pre-sale, right, and you're building the relationship and positioning yourself as the expert and creating demand, then selling actually feels way more natural, way more authentic, and you accelerate the sales process. It used to take me 6 months or more in between clients to get new clients.
Mhm.
So I opened my group, I accelerated the sales process. I cut it in half. So it's an average of 90 days. Now,
Mhm.
those 3 steps, right, can all be done with one strategy, and we call it a destination event. So this
Mhm.
can be a simple Facebook Live, it can be a challenge, it can be a workshop, it's whatever it is, it's an exclusive live event that happens inside of your group, meaning people need to go in to get it. Now, to answer your question that you asked before, it shouldn't be an event that's just like regurgitating what it is that you do.
Mhm.
It can be an event that teaches people high level what your method is, right? And how you approach things. When I coach my clients through creating a destination event, we look at like, what's the thing that would make someone an ideal client? Like, what do they need to do? What do they need to know, right? That maybe is holding them back from investing right now. And if that event can like get them to that point where they know that thing or they can do that thing, then you've actually overcome some objections already, which is where the pre-sale comes into play. So this
Mhm.
event actually the strategy touches on all 3 things at once. It gets people in the door because you're like, hey, I'm hosting this. It's in my group. Come join, right? If you've chosen
Mhm.
a topic that's compelling for your people, they don't care that it's happening in a group. Like they just
Right.
want access to it, right?
Mhm.
The second piece is again, you're spending time with people, concentrated time, helping them understand their problem better, what the real problem is, what the solution is, and positioning yourself as the person who can deliver that. You're doing the pre-selling during the event so that then at the end of the event, when you talk about your offer, there are people who want to buy, there are people who want to learn more because of everything that just came into play. And so we host those about every 90 days or so, but we also do mini ones in our group, probably once a month. I just did one last month where I talked about behind the scenes of my schedule as a mom running a business. To be honest with you, Michelle, I didn't think people cared about that. I'm like, I definitely don't have it together. You want to see behind the scenes of my schedule? Oh boy, but they do care. And they told me they
Mhm.
cared, right? I put together a little mini, like 60-minute workshop. We promoted it for a week. It was like such a small, and signed 3 clients in one
Wow.
afternoon from that, right? Like
Mm.
people who were literally, while I was talking about the offer at the end of the workshop, were messaging my client success manager being like, I want in.
Wow.
That is
Mhm.
why this is so powerful because it touches on all 3 of those components. And so my point in kind of bringing this all together for you is so that people see like you don't have to have all this content. Like this is one strategy that you can use. And every time you run an event like this, you are bringing more people into the fold, but you're also nurturing more people because some
Mhm.
people need more time. And
Mhm.
so it's like a lead in to your offer, which is what makes it so powerful because it's like, this is what you just did during the event. Here's your offer. Like your offer is the next natural step for people. And if you
Mhm.
position it that way, it can be a very powerful conversion tool.
I love that. I love that. And then you see so many people like, well, usually people, let's just say with challenges in particular, where they're doing them, let's say monthly,
Mhm,
let's just give that. So they do these pop-up groups.
mhm.
So do you recommend doing the pop-up groups and at the end, like they shift them back to the regular group? Um, do you
Not
like
until
that
I
strategy?
don't recommend it until your group is making money
Mm,
consistently. I utilize them now,
mm-hmm,
not always. Like I'm running a destination event this week and it's inside of my group, but I
mm-hmm,
have utilized them, but that's because my group makes money consistently.
mm-hmm.
Until yours does, you need to keep everybody front and center in your group
Yeah,
because otherwise you're splitting it up and then like dividing more of your attention and your energy,
exactly.
resources, and actually taking up more time, which is what we're hoping to avoid. One other thing that just came to mind that I want to share, especially around the time issue, it's
Mm-hmm,
like if you picture a door-to-door salesman, which they
mm-hmm.
still have them because somebody came to our door yesterday. My husband got caught up in a conversation that he did not want to have. And I was like, you should just cut him off at the path, but he didn't.
Exactly.
But when you think about a door-to-door salesman, right? It's like how much time and energy does it take to go door to door to door to sell individually?
Mm-hmm,
That's how we start, right? In business, is we just want a client. We don't care. We're getting it through people we know, like family, friends, all that stuff. There comes a point though where we want more efficiency. We want that central place to be
mm-hmm,
able to get clients. And so imagine if that same door-to-door salesman happened upon a house party with all the people that would have bought in that house.
mm-hmm.
How much time, like how much faster will he sell? How much time will he save? He doesn't have to go around to any other houses, right? One sales pitch delivered to hundreds or thousands of people. This is what I want everybody to think about when they think about having their own community and executing the strategy that I just outlined.
Mm-hmm. I love that because it does save you time and also your energy, right? Because it's like you have to be up and on. So think about doing that one after another versus doing it one time and you just going full out. And I
Right.
do love that because where I hear the pop-up group come in is they're like, oh, I don't want my people to hear the same thing over and over, even if they don't do it
Oh, I
much.
got a thought about that.
You tell me what your thoughts are.
You want people to hear the same thing over and over. Number one, you're not going to ever deliver the same exact sentence every time. Like nobody's that good. We always, when we deliver something again, we usually like say it a little bit differently or incorporate our own spin. So it comes across as fresh. But that being said, the people that have bought from me are usually the ones who have seen it over and over again, who have participated in multiple events, right? And so it's like, why don't we want them to see the same thing over and over again? The principles of marketing are this: people need to see and hear something at least 10 to 12 different times. It's increased. I'm going to blame the last 2 years for that. At least 10 to 12 different times before they buy. So why would you like only get it one time? You're actually lengthening the sales process. You're lengthening.
I'm glad that you said that because I honestly feel the same way. And I'm like a data person. So when I'm looking at it, now I'm having everybody like look at when they, because a lot of people, since I run ads, they're like, oh, well, I got these sales and none of them were from ads. They were from my list. And I'm like, okay, well, when did they come on your list? That was from an ad. So now let's measure.
Yeah. It's not always linear. It's not always linear. Yeah, totally. Michelle,
Exactly.
I'm here with you.
Okay, thank you. Not because we have the same name, but we know exactly.
And because we have spells.
Exactly. It's so funny because when I was younger and people used to like write my name with one L, I'm like, who's that? That they're not talking to me.
It felt
right?
empty, right? It's like something's missing. This isn't like it doesn't make sense.
And then when I would see another girl with one L, I'm like, no, you don't spell your name right. That's me. Exactly. You're missing something. Okay. So what do most people need to know in order to market their groups effectively?
Yeah. So I just did an exercise earlier this week with my Facebook group that I'm going to share here because I think it's really helpful. You want to go back to what's your purpose? A lot of people don't give that thought, right? Whatever your overall purpose is in business, like I just mentioned, mine is, helping women step into the role of provider and like having courage to do so. That's what I want my community to be like. So what do you want to do at your party? How do you want people to feel when they come into your party? Like, what is that overall purpose? And why should people join your group? With over 600 million groups, right? Why should people join your group? So what's the purpose? What are you hoping to create? What do you want to create? And then what makes your group different? Like what will people be able to know or do that they weren't able to before? And sometimes it's just knowing and having more clarity, by the way, let's not underestimate that. But what will they be able to know or do that they weren't able to do before because of being part of your group? I don't see enough people marketing that. They're just marketing the group itself. And I think that's a little bit, it's lazy marketing. I don't think anyone's intending to be lazy. It's kind of lazy because it's like, okay, with all of those group choices, like people are in a lot of groups. I don't know how many groups you're in, Michelle. I can't even count how many I'm in, but I can tell you how many I go back to intentionally. And that's how you create that intentional like revisiting, right? Where people keep coming back. That's what you want. You don't want people to just come in once. You want them to come back. You want them to keep hearing the same messages. And so you've got to create that compelling reason for them to keep coming back and telling them why. And that involves us, right? As the leaders, because you're a leader if you have a group, whether you wanted that title or not, you're a leader if you're a business. As leaders, it is our job to make that connection for people and to believe it. It's not enough to just say it. You have to believe it. You have to be passionate about it. I love my group. I believe in my group. I believe in what we've created. And so it's easy for me to market it that way. Just like anything else, right? That you market, like you have to believe in your offer. It's the same concept. You basically want to market your group the way you would market an offer.
That makes sense. And even going back to what you were saying, how you go into other groups and participate, or even in your group. So it's like, you're also being the leader, demonstrating what should be done or what you would want other people to do for you. So if you're doing it, people will mimic you because you are the leader that you are, right? You're opening up that conversation. I love that.
And inspiring people, right? Like so much of our jobs too are just to inspire people by the action that we're taking and how we're showing up.
Yeah. And honestly, we talked about being alone, but a lot of people feel like they are alone. Like when they talk to their friends or family, they don't quite understand this space, even to their spouses, So it's nice to have that, and for them to not feel like a solopreneur, even though they don't have to be solo. They're with this community backing them up and having them behind it. And I think that is powerful in itself for someone to have a space to come to. So I just love that. Now, when you talked about the G and the GPS, you talked about growing with specific people, or the right people. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of niching down and getting those specific people?
Yeah, I think that this scares people because they don't want to like leave clients or money on the table, or they're afraid that they'll be missing out. But what I want to challenge you with is, what are you missing out on right now by not doing that?
Mhm.
Right? Like by trying to be everything to everyone. And so you do need to know who you want at your party. It'd be like if you just, took party invitations and threw them in the air at your local park and just scattered them everywhere. And then like, oh, well, whoever shows up, shows up. Like that would be kind of dangerous and like
Mhm.
not fun. Right. And so you want to be intentional here about making sure you know who your party is for and who belongs in that space. There's nothing worse than being at a party or being in a gathering where it's like, none of this is applicable to me.
Right.
Right? Like none of this makes sense. Like it almost makes you feel more alone. And so you don't want your people to experience that. And
Mhm.
so hopefully that helps shift some things, any hesitations that people have about why they're scared to like niche down. Like I'm not telling you you have to work with those types of people for the rest of your life and you can't like what you're saying is this is a priority for me, right? It's a priority for me to get in front of those people. And again, like people also want to feel like they belong. They want to feel seen and heard. That's at the core of our beings. And so when you can tell people like who it's for and they can say, oh, that's me, they're
Mhm.
going to be much more likely to be engaged, right? Like
Yes.
a lot of people with low engagement rates, it's not because your content sucks or the algorithm hates you. It's because you yourself haven't gotten clear about who's a good fit and you've let a lot of people in who maybe aren't resonating with the content because it doesn't make sense for them.
Mhm. Can you talk about that in the engagement for a minute? So if we're talking, do you ever, well, number one, if someone doesn't follow the rules, you just take them out?
Yeah, we'll remove posts and explain why the rules were broken. And then if it's a repeat offender, we'll take them out. We rarely have to do that again because we're so intentional about our growth and we decline a
Okay.
lot of requests to join.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that's like a normal thing. So no one should
very
be
normal.
like
Yep.
feeling like I'm okay. So then number two is,
Why, by the way, you need to set guidelines. You need to, in
yes.
your about section, and you need to be clear about how do you want people to engage? So it's not just about don't do this and point your finger at them, but how do you want people to engage? And then what are those guidelines? People like rules deep down because
Mhm.
it's like, okay, there's safety in rules and in knowing what to expect and not to expect.
So true. Just like children, right? I guess as children, that's what we learn. Because
Yeah, my kids hate when I discipline them, but I think afterward it's like they feel safer because it's like, okay, I know where my limits are.
exactly, exactly. So then my other question is with engagement, do you set any, or do you like as you and your team have anything like, okay, if so many like if somebody hasn't engaged with anything within such a period of time frame, okay, we're going to remove you now because you're
Nope.
messing up? No, you
Nope.
just leave them in there.
We leave
Okay.
them in. There is a section where you can sort by inactive members.
Mhm.
Like we'll remove those people from time to time. There's usually not like a ton. Um,
Mhm.
and inactive meaning like their profile disappeared or something,
Oh, okay.
happened or whatever.
Okay. That's
But
interesting.
it's that we do not purge. And here's why.
Okay.
I actually wrote a post about this a while back. We do not purge because it is very difficult to know if someone's engaging because we
Mhm.
deem engagement as like, you better comment or like my stuff. Well, actually, a lot of people are engaging, but they're not engaging in the way you think they should. Their version of engaging is reading your content and your posts.
Mm.
That's why if you go to your Facebook group insights and you look at active members and how Facebook defines active members, it's members who have liked, commented, and viewed something.
Mhm.
So Facebook itself is defining active members not necessarily by whether someone likes something. A lot of the people who come work with me are like, I've been watching your content. I had no idea. Right? I had no idea they were watching. So
Right.
had I removed them because they didn't comment, like I see these posts popping up of like, comment if you want to stay. No, because what if someone doesn't feel comfortable commenting externally? What if they don't want to like raise their hand and say they're in here, but they still need support in some form, right? Like you
Mhm.
just I think it's very difficult to tell. And so you're gonna end up removing people who um might have been engaging all along and you just didn't know it. I also think that I would much rather like focus on helping to re-engage people than like
Mhm.
just kick them out. I will say this, and I think it's important to note, as your group gets bigger, in many cases, your engagement rate, meaning like the rate of active members, will decline. And that's
Mhm.
normal. The longer you have a group and the bigger it gets, because some people who came in at the beginning and the content was relative to them, 3 years ago, like it doesn't resonate anymore. Something
Right.
has changed. And so they may just naturally like self-select out. And if they don't
Mhm.
leave, they're just not watching. Fine. But there are also people who maybe come in and get re-engaged because something changes. And I would much prefer the cycle to be more natural. To me, spending time removing inactive members, like, is that going to make you money? Is that going to help your group convert? Now, I know there are people who are like, well, if you have less active members, Facebook will show your group more. And while I think there's some truth to that, I also think there's a lot of truth to you focusing on like asking good questions and putting out content that resonates with your people and that's relevant to them. The more you do that, the more people will actively start to engage. And then
Mhm.
Facebook will actually like that pushes your group to the top. That's when Facebook suggests your group. So I just don't, I have not yet been convinced, Michelle, that spending time removing inactive members has actually produced like clients from groups.
Mhm. That's good to know. And
I may be
exactly.
challenged on that by somebody, but I've not yet been able to.
Well, and you're right. So you have to like, it's kind of like you pick your battles, right? Or you pick what is the one thing you're trying to accomplish, and that is to monetize. So if you're looking like, okay, instead of spending my time and effort in one area, I'm going to spend it in this area, and I'll probably get more like
Yep.
conversions than I would doing this task,
Can
right?
we also mention that the sales process has changed a little bit? Like, I'm sure you've
Yes.
seen this. It's people are taking longer to make buying decisions,
Yeah.
right? They're spending more time behind the scenes digesting information to see if you're someone that they want to work with. So
Hmm.
sure, maybe they're not engaging now, but what if they're going to buy from you in 90 days and you kick them out because they didn't comment on your post?
Right.
Ridiculous.
It's true. It's true. So speaking of the sales process, like how do you start building relationships with total strangers? Like again, no, like maybe I'm answering my own question, knowing that you're going to sell to them without feeling like salesy.
It's all about your motivation. If your motivation is to go make a sale, then it'll come across as salesy. If your motivation is, hey, you showed up to my party, I want to learn more about you and I want to see how I can help you without any attachment to them buying, then you will not come across as salesy. And you'll know exactly what to say. And it may not be what I would say
Right.
or how I
Right.
would approach it, right? Because my
Yeah.
style is different. It's all about your motivation and you've got to check
Hmm.
yourself on that. If
Yeah.
you're, sending somebody a welcome message and being like, all right, how do I just get them to become a client really fast? Versus I'm going to send them a welcome message and know that like they're hanging out in my world anyway, like whenever they're
Hmm.
ready, they'll be ready. And I just want to learn more about them and see where I can point them to certain resources.
Hmm. And it all comes back to coming from that place of serving, right? Um, okay, so let's talk about, I do paid advertising. However, I don't always think that all your eggs should be in that paid traffic basket, right? I do think that you should be working like in harmony with organically. So what are some of the best ways to market yourself with whether you have little time or little money?
Yeah. So you're always trading time versus money, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely agree. I think that early on, especially when you're first starting a group, I wouldn't recommend like I know people have used ads to run ads to like a lead magnet or a resource and then on a thank you page have people join your group, which I've done and has been very successful, but I don't recommend doing it early on because you're still figuring out like what works and what people resonate with. And so I think that's where a lot of people can waste money, right, by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're saving time, but like it's not working out that way. And then on the other end, I think that when you're doing organic marketing, like it's naturally going to take more of your time, right? And you have to understand that and be willing to like test and refine and learn more about how people respond so that any ads you do run are more effective because
Right.
you already have gotten some of that knowledge. So I'm with you. I think they do work hand in hand. I think that we're always going to be trading off time versus money. I think at the beginning you're going to be more willing to spend time, and then as things go on and as you grow, that's where it's going to be like I don't have a lot of time, so I need to invest some dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like if you can get people into your group and really understand, and like I feel like a group is like market research on steroids because you're learning
Mm-hmm.
more about the words they use, the phrases they use, like even just in your membership questions, if you ask them why did you join this group, they'll tell you, and that's all gold. That's stuff you can use in your messaging, that's stuff you can use in ads, right? to make it more effective because you've taken the time to do the market research.
Mhm. So how do you know when your marketing is working?
If you've given it consistently 90 days and you are getting the right people in and you are talking about your offer and you have taken consistent action, and let's say you're not getting results, then that's when you can go back and troubleshoot and make adjustments. I very rarely ever have people get to that point because they're usually ready to make a change almost immediately.
Mm.
So I'm going to change my group name because I'm not getting the right people in, or I'm going to change my offer. I'm going to change my messaging. I'm going to change, like, you work until it works. That's
Mhm.
literally the thought that has made me the money that I've made, right? Is you work until it works. It doesn't mean you're always batting your head against a wall, but it's got to be a minimum of 90 days or you haven't given it enough time. You just haven't, because there's
Mhm.
noise online, right? People are distracted, attention spans are short. And again, to the point that we talked about earlier, people need to see and hear things over and over again. And what I find is that most women, they're too impatient. They have bought into the story of instant gratification and overnight quantum leaps, and they're not willing to keep showing up for a minimum of 90 days and do the same strategy. Until you are, then you can't change anything. At least you shouldn't. Or
Exactly.
you can, but it's gonna be fruitless, right? It's gonna be a fruitless mission.
Yes. Preach, 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 because I think you just hit the nail on the head. And even when you get to 90 days, you might have made the progress. Maybe you're not going to hit that whatever six-figure goal that you wanted. However, you got to look at now, how are you progressing that you're like, okay, now I'm here. Now what's the next 90 days going to bring me to that next level, right? So it's not just, okay, 90 days, that's it. It's like, okay, well, now let's evaluate what is the progress that I've made, you know what I mean? And how can I get more? Because I do agree with you. People give up way too soon. And then they're like, oh, this is okay. I've given the 90 days. It's not even close to what I want to make. But yeah, but you're making way more than what you started. You know what I mean? Or you got more people in started. You got more people engaged started, right? So now it's all about, okay, well, is your offer converting? Is this? There's so many pieces that go into everything. I love this. Is there any last minute anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I would say this, kind of going back to the leader piece, like, I think a lot of people are hesitant to really show up as the leader in their communities or to grow their communities because they feel like they don't have anything valuable to say, or what they do
Mm-hmm.
is too basic. And I want to just remind you guys that, of course, what you do is going to feel basic to you because you're the expert, but it's not basic to other people. It's definitely not basic to your people. And so, and also sometimes the basic, simple things are exactly what people need to hear because we live in a world of just complicated and more, more, more. So I just want to encourage anybody who might be thinking that, like, you have God-given talents for a reason. There are people out there where, like, their biggest nightmare is the thing you love most. And so I think that's what you need to be really owning, right? And that's where having a community and having a group is so powerful. But you can't convert if you're not talking about what you do and how you help people because you feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's too basic or it's not good enough or it's not valuable enough. So that would be the message that I would share with.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Okay, it's time for Michelle's hot minute. So I just set the timer for 1 minute. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. So answer the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, ready? Okay, what is your guilty pleasure?
Binging Below Deck on Bravo.
Would you rather lounge by the pool or on the beach?
Beach.
Your favorite thing to do with your boys?
Go to the park and just play and, like, then hit the Chick-fil-A drive-through afterward.
What is your most favorite item that you bought this year?
My basement renovation.
That's a big one. I'm right there with you. Oh my God, I would love to see it. Okay. What is your next travel destination?
My next travel destination is Mexico in August for my sister's bachelorette weekend.
Oh, that'll be fun. I might have already answered. What kind of reality show would you appear in?
Oh my goodness. I would probably appear in, like, a business. What's an entrepreneur, like, reality show? I feel like there's a couple that come to
Like
mind.
The Apprentice kind of thing?
I don't like the Apprentice type thing. Like, I feel like I would appear in a show. Like, I love watching Million Dollar Listing. I would totally be on that show, not because I know, like, real estate, but just because I love the negotiations and, like,
Yes.
the selling and the psychology that happens. Like, I think a lot of that is what we do every day. So I actually love that show and I would probably love to appear on it. Although I probably then would go cry afterward because they're very
I love that. That was so much fun. I so much appreciate you coming on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And where can people find you?
Yeah, so head over to my Facebook group, Market Like a Boss. If you want to see any of the things that I've mentioned today in action, and you want to be in community with 7,000 other women who get you and understand you, we have amazing coaches in there. We have amazing service providers. We talk about standing out, creating a community that converts, all of that good stuff. So if you want to be in that community, I would love, love, love to have you.
All right. Well, there you have it. Monetizing your Facebook group. Definitely go check out Michelle. I'll drop where you can find her in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed the show. And until next time, let's grow your business together. Bye.